I can't hang on. I've started. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy.
What do you mean you've started? And I'm Mark.
And this is
What do you mean?
Strange
How
Stuff
long ago did you
Podcast.
start?
I didn't start while you were on the phone,
All right, good.
so nobody knows about your midsummer plans, which, again, don't include me. Bit rude.
What, are you coming down for midsummer?
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
All right. All right. Sorry. Yes. So where are we, Andy? It's 1:00 on
On a Wednesday afternoon.
on a Wednesday afternoon. For God's sake, this is very confusing.
Very unusual.
And we are talking about the same subject as last time because you screwed up, didn't you?
No, I didn't screw up. We
matter.
had too much. We had too much to talk about, and we waffled on for way too long in the first half.
Oh, right.
So we'll try and keep the waffling to a minimum.
Yeah, well, there's not too much to report apart from the global economy falling apart, of course.
Well, I mean, obviously there's Trump's now 110% tariff on the Chinese.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
He's a funny guy.
It's just, it's beyond. Funnily enough, I think I was saying last time, where are all the actual economists who organise this? It only seemed to be Trump talking nonsense. And in fact, they have had a few. They dragged them in front of some committee and they were quizzing these people. And
about their reasoning.
Yes, or lack thereof. Yes, exactly.
And did they have any answers?
Not really, no. I mean, it all comes back to the president is God. He's decided what we're going to do. And I'm not going to contradict him in public because I'll be fired if I do.
Yeah. I'll have Elon knocking on my door with me P45.
I don't know. I can't work out what's happened to Elon because he described one of the architects of the tariff thing as a complete moron yesterday.
Hot kettle.
Because the moron had said that Musk doesn't actually manufacture cars in America. He assembles cars in America with
He's
parts
kind of
made
got
in...
a point.
Yes, you're right. So, but, we haven't seen Musk. I don't think we've seen Musk in an official capacity for over a week now. He may be dead. Maybe he's dead.
Oh, I don't think so. Apparently he was, it wasn't him, it was someone he pays. He was live streaming a game that I've got, in fact, Path of Exiles. And because he likes to pretend that he's a gamer. And he was live streaming. It was basically the beginning of the game, the introduction, where you have to get to a village and on the way you have to kill this boss. Anyway, he couldn't kill the boss. He started off by blaming his internet connection. I don't know if he uses Starlink. And in the end, he just rage quit. He was getting trolled rotten by the people that were watching the stream, though.
But how could you tell it was Elon Musk who was playing this game?
Because you can't. He doesn't play these games.
Oh, right.
I mean, usually when you stream, you do have your webcam active and your picture appears in the bottom corner, but you can point that webcam at anyone.
Oh, wait. It could be your cat who's playing the game.
Yeah. I mean, there was this big thing that he was going on about how he was one of the top 20 players in the world at Diablo 4. And Diablo 4 went, no, he's not. He actually pays people to play video games for him using his ID, which is probably the saddest thing I've ever heard.
I wonder how mentally stable Elon Musk. I wonder what the long-term effects of ketamine addiction are.
Well, for a horse, it's laziness.
Is it?
Well, it's a horse tranquilizer, isn't it?
Yeah. No, because I mean, he literally in that interview the other day with Fox, where he was nearly in tears. I mean, he struck me as a little bit unstable, to put it mildly.
Well, he's going through his Britney Spears phase, isn't he?
What the hell's that? What's a Britney Spears phase? His
Well, I think
father has taken over.
He needs a conservatorship.
Oh, I saw a very funny. I think it might even be called a meme. They had been trolling Trump's idea of bringing manufacturing jobs back to America. So they'd obviously taken a film of a factory in China, but they'd overlaid it with slightly obese American clueless people trying to assemble Apple phones. It was very funny. What does he think? Where does he think these people are going to come from? They couldn't even fit in the factory. They couldn't fit through the factory door, let alone assemble an iPhone. You need nimble fingers to assemble an iPhone.
They would literally, he would have to literally reintroduce child labour.
Yeah, well, that's maybe what he's going for. Have you heard of this fellow, Steve Miller?
The Steve Miller Band.
Well, funnily enough, I remember the Steve Miller Band, good band. No, I think Steve Miller is some dark operative.
Some people call me the Space Cowboy.
That's right. Not quite like that, though, no. Something to do with this 2025. What's this thing? This sort of dark eminence noirs in the background who are actually in control of Trump. And Steve Miller is
someone in control.
Well, and that fellow Thiel, who is the one who's sponsored J.D. Vance through every single failed job and position he's ever held, is financed by this other billionaire, Thiel. And it's sort of so in your face. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're literally not trying to hide it. Anyway, what I was coming to was, I think they're trying to literally create some sort of serf class. Would that be a way of describing it?
Yeah, it would be
literally
the
medieval.
serfs and the landlords.
Exactly, yes, exactly.
The barons.
Yes, barons and serfs. That is the world they are want to create in America.
Well, they want to get back to it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They've realised that, allowing the middle classes to emerge after the Second World War was a really serious mistake.
Yeah. Well, they think it was a serious mistake. I would support generally the idea of better wealth distribution, a more equal distribution of wealth.
But I don't even understand why they're so selfish, because whenever they feel like they haven't got enough money, they just print more.
Yeah, but it's an interesting question, isn't it? I mean, as I've said so many times before, why does who used to be Bezos, having become the richest man in the world as he was, why would he want to squeeze that extra drop of blood out of all of his workforce by making them pee into bottles and things like that? Why? When you're the richest man in the world, why not sort of start spread it around? No. Because
you can, and because you turn that amount of money obviously turns you into a deranged fucking fascist dictator.
No, well, clearly. And that's, I mean, I can understand sort of people wanting to protect their position and for future generations, but this is going way beyond that. I mean,
he could go to the end of the world. I
No,
mean,
literally,
you're talking billions of years.
Yes, literally. There is nothing that can touch these people. There's no economic catastrophe that could even touch them. So why? Why? I don't. Well, of course I don't understand it. That's why I sit on an island.
It's like Formula One racing, though, isn't it? It's like Formula One racing.
Now, what are you talking about? What, Formula One racing? Exciting? Yes. Honest?
No, because you've got 20 people on the track, all in very expensive, very fast cars, all trying to be 1/100th of a second faster than the next one. And that's the same thing with billionaires. They all want to be just that little bit richer than the other one.
Not too sure I follow the analogy, but anyway.
No, because you're a Formula One lover. By the way, have you seen Gran Turismo on Netflix?
What's the game?
It's an offshoot. It's made about the game, that's for sure.
No.
But the film Gran Turismo is on Netflix.
Gran Turismo film on Netflix?
Yes.
Really?
You probably don't remember this happening. I do. I sort of remember when the game was released. It was like 1998.
This is the driving game. I have played it.
Yes, it was on the PlayStation 2.
And it's now Gran Turismo 23 or something.
Whatever. But it used to be in arcades as well before it was on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
The guy who designed it spent about 10 years creating the game, and his vision was that it would be the most accurate driving simulator ever created. So you could adjust suspension, the air pressure in the tires, everything that can be adjusted on a Formula One racing car, you can adjust in Gran Turismo.
I'm not too sure that's true, but anyway, carry on.
It's pretty true. In fact, the game was so successful that racing drivers practiced on it.
Yeah, I think that's
as well as practiced on the track.
Gamer hearsay.
They decided that they would run a competition.
Yes.
Nissan, this was. They were woeful about their sales in general. And they came up, or one of these marketing guys, or one of the sales guys came up with this idea about holding sort of a competition on the Gran Turismo, finding the 10
and they would get seats
players.
In actual cars.
They would actually get sent to the Nissan Racing Academy.
Yep.
And the winner, the outright winner, after all the training and the racing, would be given a job on the Nissan Formula One team.
Well, there isn't one, but it's touring cars. Yeah, but you're
whatever.
right. I can't remember how. I don't think he did very well, unfortunately.
It happened.
Yeah.
And the guy who won, I can't remember his name now because I watched it about a week ago. But on his first race, he actually killed a spectator.
No,
which was unfortunate. Yeah, he did. His car left the track, somersaulted into the crowd over a fence, and a spectator was killed.
Is there a punchline? Are you going to have a punchline? Is this a joke? A build up to a joke?
No, not at all. But he went on to get his license. He had to finish fourth in an event, and he got his license. And he raced for many years. He didn't do brilliantly, but it just proved that dreams can come true.
Well, I mean, I don't want to blow up your balloon or burst your balloon, but you realise that God, I've forgotten his name. Who's the horrible world champion Formula One who's got number one?
No idea.
Oh dear, I can't remember. This is embarrassing. The viewers are going to be really worried about my dementia setting in. Not Lewis Hamilton, but his arch rival, the Dutch fellow. He competes in the esports motor racing Formula One. And in fact, last season, on a couple of occasions, he was actually competing during the night Verstappen, during the night before an actual Formula One race.
Oh, there you go. They're quite accurate. I mean, they must
Max
be
Verstappen.
They must be pretty accurate.
Oh, they are. Well, funny enough, I wasn't watching the Netflix thing. I was watching a report of exactly that. Why the Formula One teams use simulators for development of their cars.
Well, they're a lot cheaper, for one thing.
And you have limited access to track time when you are an actual Formula One car team. Anyway, Nissan aren't in Formula One, but I get the gist of the story. Well, and I know the story. Because, in fact, funnily enough, someone else got a drive with Nissan It was that British cyclist, Chris Hoy.
Chris Hoy.
He earned a seat in Nissan, and he was appearing at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And the first time out, representing Nissan, I think it was like the third corner, he heavily ploughed into the hay bales and destroyed the car.
Sorry.
I think he might have been diagnosed with cancer now, that poor fellow.
I don't know.
He's a multi-Olympic gold medalist. Anyway,
I know who he is.
He's got legs that literally look like tree trunks.
Yes, them steroids.
No, I don't think he's allowed steroids.
They all take drugs.
They all take drugs.
Every Olympic athlete has taken or is taking drugs. It's a fact. Ex-Olympic athletes have said, if you're in the Olympics, you are guilty. You have been drugged.
Well, why is it the drug testing is so shit that if everybody's involved, if everybody's doing...
The reason it's so shit is because the drugs are ever evolving to get round the drug test. So they employ fucking chemists to change the makeup of the drugs so they get the same effect, but it doesn't show up on the existing drug tests. And it's a game of cat and mouse with the Olympic Committee and the trainers. Because you just do not have that physique and that muscle mass without the aid of some kind of steroids.
Andy, I have to say, you are the archetypal result of exposure to too much tabloid journalism.
Really?
You've developed into not only a conspiracy theorist, but a cynic. I'm a cynic.
2 words.
Yeah.
Fatima Whitbread.
I remember Fatima Whitbread. What did she do? She was a decathlon.
She mostly looked like fucking Daley Thompson without a mustache.
So what are you saying? That
that was not her natural body. That was not her natural body.
I'm going to check if she's had children. And if she has, that disputes everything that you've said so far. I do remember.
You can have children after taking drugs. There's no problem with that.
Oh, I see. You mean she was a drug taker?
Definitely.
How you can say these things?
Well, because
it was like that ridiculous poor old little girl who got abducted and probably murdered, and you were saying, "I know it was the parents." I've got a gut feeling about. I mean, it's just where do you get these ideas from?
I had some very supportive emails after that episode.
Absolute. Now you're just making shit up.
Nope.
Bollocks. Why wouldn't you have mentioned that to me?
Because you just would have said, now you're making shit up.
Oh, dear. Oh, no. All right. She was born, Fatima Whitbread was born 3rd of March, 1961.
And that's relevant because...
Because I was born on the 5th of March, 1961.
Ah.
She was a javelin thrower.
So you're almost twins.
Almost. Oh. Unfortunately, she lost her husband. Where is it? Got children. Yep. Children she's got. That was 1984, Andy.
What was?
All right, so we were in our 20s.
21.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she looks like a very elegant lady to me.
I remember they doled her up in the sun once in a sort of evening dress type situation because there were a lot of unkind comments about her physique and the way she looked. And to be honest, she looked like a bloke in drag.
We've reconnected.
Oh,
there's a problem.
We didn't actually disconnect.
What's going on?
No, you have got a bit of a ropey connection today for some reason.
Me?
Yeah. But it's okay because it will still record normally. Anyway.
Why have you got goody gumdrops?
Well,
What's that got to do? And I'm still on the witch.
Because we're going to talk about witches today.
I know, but why are you goody gumdrops? There's nothing good about you.
Yeah, but if you remember your witch lore in the 1500s, all witches were called Goody. They were all called Goody Goodwife or Goody Tree Picker or Goody so and so. There were so many goodies, and it was always the sign of a witch.
No.
Yes. But I mean, obviously, I'm making that up as well.
But who was that? I don't want to speak ill of her because I have a feeling she died. But there was a particularly obnoxious young woman who was...
I thought you weren't going to speak ill of her.
No, but a tabloid celebrity, D-class celebrity. I think her name was Goody.
Oh, Jade Goody.
Yeah, Jade Goody. Didn't she die of cancer?
Yes.
But, yeah. But I can't remember why her name... She was pretty
I don't believe
nasty.
That she was burned as a witch.
No, but you could claim that she ended up with the same fate, death.
Yeah, she was pilloried because she racially abused someone on the Big Brother show, I think.
Oh God, she was on Big Brother, was she? What happened to that? Is that still going?
I have no idea. I hope not. It should never have been started, let alone carried on for as many years as it did.
What do you mean? It was a very popular... I've never watched it, but it was a very popular show.
Worst idea ever. And such cheap trash television. I mean, It's because of programs like that good television stopped being made because they realised they could get top ratings by just humiliating people in live situations. It costs nothing to produce.
No, that's absolutely true. Reality TV wouldn't exist without a good mix of humiliation.
That's the whole point.
I've never... do I watch any reality TV? I don't think I do. All these dating things, marriage on the first sight.
I mean, there's mental illness involved in that one.
Which one?
Who in Married at First Sight?
Oh, that is one.
Yeah. Why?
Is there one called Married at First?
There's got to be mental illness involved in that. How they get permission to allow that to happen, I just don't know.
No, you're right. But do you remember that one with Cilla Black? That was reality TV, Blind Date.
Blind Date. Yeah, but that had comedic value.
It was quite innocent in those days.
Because it wasn't putting people in a house together for 8 weeks and seeing what happens if you throw in sex and alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Although, having said that, I do know one person who went on that show.
No, you didn't, did you?
Not me, no. It was
Blind Date?
Yeah. I won't mention his name.
It was a he. Did he get laid?
He did.
What, with the girl he had a date with?
Even before they went on the date.
What? I don't want to question her moral standing, but that seems a bit... What?
Well, come on, it was a precursor for Tinder, wasn't it? You swipe right. It was just, that's the whole point of the show, was to get people laid. Because what's the point otherwise when they come back next week and they say, it was all right, but he was a bit boring?
Wasn't there a euphemism for having had sex? He gave me a massage or something like that. We had a really nice date with a happy ending.
Yeah.
It was quite innocent in those days compared to what happens today, where they literally have sex in front of the cameras.
Oh, and they're proud
that
of
was
it.
Big Brother. That was when they had cameras in the bedrooms, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, the only place they didn't have them was in the toilets. And even then, I'm not sure.
That comes out next year.
Yeah.
Unedited
The
version.
Big Brother toilet cam.
Yeah.
Oh, and in the toilet now, we've got Cafe. And, oh, what's she doing? She's playing the fucking banjo.
Oh dear! What got us onto this subject? What's that got to do
I
with
don't
witches?
know. We were talking about Formula One racing.
No, we were talking about witches, and you were saying they were called Goody.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, goody. Anyway, let's get to it. So last week we spoke about the Seven, I believe.
That's it. I've got notes in front
The
of
Seven
me.
of Lancashire.
The unfortunate children and a couple of the friends.
Yes. And it all happened in the late 1500s, early
In
1600s in Lancashire.
Lancashire.
And staying in Lancashire, we're going to talk about the Pendle witches. Pendle Hill looms as a bit of a dark and eerie backdrop to one of England's most infamous witch trials. The hill in Lancashire was once a symbol of fear, superstition, and the chilling power of accusation in a time of mass hysteria, which we're very familiar with.
Sheep.
Yes, and Salem. As one of the most famous witch trials of the 17th century, the Pendle Hill witch trials have fascinated people for over 400 years.
Hang on, 17th century is 1600s, isn't it?
Yes.
But the seven were happening in 1584.
97.
The story culminated in 1597.
Well, the Pendle witch trials took place around about 1612. So they're very close together.
All right.
Now, these trials were so significant that they're said to be the UK's answer to Salem.
Or Mora.
Or Mora. But they're also some of the best recorded of the 17th century. I don't know why, probably because people could write.
England was quite good at keeping records of those sort of things, weren't they?
I don't know if they were in those days. There wasn't a lot of literacy.
Wasn't there?
Now, though the trials are long over, the historic significance of the Pendle Hill witches still stands, and even now, today, people flock to Lancashire on their broomsticks to discover more about the dark history that took place back there in 1612. Now, before we start the whole story, I should say that there's no evidence that any key events actually happened on Pendle Hill. It's just called the Pendle Hill Witch Trials.
I would have to say, Andy, if you're going to qualify this story with
No, I'm not going to qualify anything else.
I was going to say, we need quite a few of those disclaimers at the front end of every episode that we do.
I'd just like to say that everything in the next hour is complete and utter bullshit.
Like that bloody... I'm still annoyed about that pyramid story.
There was nothing but facts in that story. Now, it all began on a cold, lonely road on the 21st of March in 1612, an auspicious date. It's the first day of spring and the day before my birthday. Walking to Trawden Forest was Alison Device. Yeah, that's a great name for a witch, isn't it? Device. Goody Device. She was a 17-year-old girl who came from a poor family living in the Pendle Forest. Alison encountered John Law, a peddler from Halifax. And
What's
she asked
a peddler?
him...
Hang on.
A kind of street trader. A guy who goes from door to door selling pots and pans and
That's called
stuff.
A peddler, is it? You sure?
Yeah, someone who wanders around selling bits and pieces.
All right.
Peddler. Hang on.
What are you doing?
I've lost a thing.
I've closed Spotify.
What,
I thought
forever?
that might have caused my problem.
Yeah, you shouldn't have anything running in the background.
I've got everything running in the background.
Well, it does interfere. We're
All right,
using
I've closed all
bandwidth
that.
here.
All right, bandwidth, yeah.
Yeah, she encountered John Law, a peddler from Halifax, and she asked him for some pins, which were believed to be used for folk magic in those times. Probably for sewing as well, but
Who knows?
when he refused, Alison cursed him and he collapsed onto the ground. It's important to note at this point, it's uncertain whether or not he collapsed immediately after she cursed him or whether his
2
condition
months
worsened later. It's commonly believed that he also may have suffered a stroke. Now, this simple act of purchasing pins or lack of pins was the catalyst for the whole of the Pendle Hill trials. And again, no one truly knows what happened on that day. Some believe that Device was a witch and that she cursed him. Others believe that she might have just mumbled her frustration under her breath, which happened to be bad timing, as he later suffered a stroke while probably sitting in the pub.
But the thing is that if he died, how would they know that there's any evidence of this episode ever happening?
A stroke is not necessarily fatal.
Yeah, you normally have difficulty making conversation afterwards, and secondly, you're not going to rely on what you thought the moment before you have a stroke.
You can have many different grades of stroke. People have mini strokes all the time and don't even notice. Anyway, John Law believed that she'd cursed him. And Alison was brought to the local magistrate where, under immense pressure and probably a bit of torture, she confessed to everything. She also incriminated her grandmother, Elizabeth Southerns, also known as, and I love these names.
Goody Southerns.
No, Old Demdike.
Old Demdike?
Old Demdike.
Old Demdike.
And Anne Whittle, who was also known as Mother Chattox.
These all sound a bit theatrical.
Now, Old Demdike had been known in the area as a witch for 50 years. Now, of course, not a witch as we see it. It was an accepted part of life back then to practice magic and healing with herbs and medicines.
Like a witch doctor?
Yes. Now, this sparked a broader investigation, of course, leading to the arrest of several others from both families. In April, Demdike, Chattox, Device and Whittle's daughter, Anne Redfern, were committed for trial for witchcraft at Lancaster Castle.
So they got 3 generations of these women.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you were wearing a skirt in those days, God help you if someone got accused. On Good Friday, the Demdike and Device families meet at Malkin Tower, which was the home of the Demdikes, to feast on stolen mutton, but are then accused of plotting to free the imprisoned women and blow up the castle. The idea that the gathering at Malkin Tower was a witch's Sabbath was probably fabricated by the authorities rather than an actual occult meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Am I keeping you up?
No. What was the pagan connection with Easter, or was there one?
I think Easter itself was a pagan celebration before Christianity.
I wonder of what.
I don't know. But, I mean, everything comes from pagans. Like the solstices and things, midsummer, etc.
I think the solstice more relate to astronomy rather than paganism.
No, they were celebrated by pagans.
Oh, yeah, but they do happen to be equinox. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, continue. So they didn't have a witch's meet. Or they might have done.
Well, they were accused of an occult gathering, but, that was probably just invented by the authorities. And those who attended the meeting, named the Witches' Sabbath, were all rounded up and imprisoned at Lancaster Castle, and all of the accused swung from the gallows.
What?
Except for old Demdike, who died in prison before her trial.
What? So they just hung these women?
Yeah.
So I thought we were going to go through their trial and get to hear what they did.
Witch guilty.
Yeah, but that's how you operate. But most normal people actually have a trial.
I'm not sure that there was much of a trial for anyone in those days.
Speaking of which,
You certainly didn't get a phone call.
here's a 30-second interlude. They, going back to Trump, that they deported all these people to El Salvador.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the guys they deported was on the basis of his tats.
Right, because he had tattoos.
Because he had tattoos, he was claimed to be a gang member. Well, he turns out to be, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, he turns out to be a gay hairstylist. And one of his tattoos was of wild roses going up his leg. I mean, literally, absolutely nothing to do with gang affiliation. And in fact, the reason he left El Salvador was to escape the gang culture. And this poor bastard finds himself back in a Supermax jail in El Salvador.
Probably happy as a
I suspect
pig in
not.
shit.
I suspect not, Andy. What got me onto that? Tats. Did you
I don't
mention
know.
tattoos?
No.
Well, what made my mind
about
jump to that?
Justice and trials.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, without trial. Yeah. Carry on.
Since these trials, over the years, there's been many petitions to pardon the Pendle Hill witches for their crimes.
So hang on, this poor woman, Holma Dyke, she lost her daughter and granddaughter by execute. Oh no, sorry, she died in prison. That's right. Yeah. But did she?
Well, yes, she did. Since the trials, there's been many petitions to pardon them, but it was decided that their convictions should stand. So the victims involved who was trialled was Elizabeth Southerns, also known as Demdike, Elizabeth Device, daughter of Demdike, James Device.
James, a bloke?
Yeah, he was the son of Elizabeth Device. Alison Device, the daughter of Elizabeth Device.
Yeah.
Anne Whittle, who was known as Chattox.
Yeah.
Anne Redfern, the daughter of Chattox. Alice Nutter. She didn't have a nickname because Nutter. Jane Bulcock.
So hang on, we got 6
names.
or 7 people, and they just
10.
10 of them, was it?
John Bulcock, who was the son of Jane Bulcock, and Catherine Hewitt, who was also known as Mould Heels.
Mould Heels?
Yeah. Maybe she had stinky feet.
So it's 3 families, basically, who got done.
Yeah.
And who were their accusers?
Generations.
Yeah. And
generations of them.
Who were
Well, it
their
started
accusers?
off with just the peddler. But when they found them all enjoying their meal of stolen mutton, they decided that they would all be accused because it was an occult meeting on a witch's Sabbath.
What was the penalty for eating stolen mutton? That might have been death in those days.
Probably was, because the mutton would have belonged to the local baron. Now, each of the accused was found guilty during the 2-day trial.
2 days to accuse 10 people?
Yeah.
Pretty efficient justice system in those days, I have to say.
It probably took an hour or 2 to get them to the stand, because they knew what the result was going to be. And then it was, how do ye plead? Not guilty. Liar! Yeah, and then each was hanged at Gallows Hill in Lancaster on the 20th of August, 1612, all except for Demdike.
Who died?
Alice Gray was also accused of witchcraft, but she was not found guilty.
I mean, how can you have evidence for witchcraft? Or in fact, the only crime supposedly committed, witch crime, was this curse on Mr. Peddler.
Yeah.
And the others, it was just by association.
Oh, there were more.
There were more
They didn't just stop there. They were tried in a group with others. There was Isabel Roby from Windle, who was accused of using witchcraft to cause sickness. Margaret Pearson from Padiham, facing her third trial for witchcraft. She was unlucky. And there was the Samlesbury witches, Jane Southworth, Jeanette Brearley and Ellen Brearley. Now, it's important to note that many of the accused protested their innocence until the very end. Some of the accused, such as Alison Device, and I call it Alison because it's spelt with a Z, believed that they were guilty. They actually did believe they were witches. Or at least they'd been tortured to an extent where they would accept that they were witches. Much of the evidence offered in the trials was questionable. For example, Jeanette Preston was found guilty because when she was taken to see the body of Thomas Lister of Westby, who she was accused of murdering with witchcraft, the body bled profoundly when she touched it. Probably didn't. Elizabeth Device was charged with the murders of James Robinson, John Robinson and Henry Mitten, mainly because her 9-year-old daughter, Janet Device, gave evidence against her. But it's also believed that her deformity may have influenced perceptions of her as a witch. I can't tell you what that deformity was.
I was going to say.
Hopefully it was a humpback or one of those big beaky noses with a wart on the side of her face.
That's not a deformity.
But it's a sign of a witch.
It's interesting we're talking about this because this is the period we are now heading into.
Yes, we are having witch hunts now.
I mean, literally, as I've said, we've talked about, literally, it's the same thing. People being deported, people being arrested without evidence. Okay, they're not being hung, but they soon will be. They'll soon be starting to get shot. So we think upon these sort of stories as ludicrous. It's mildly entertaining because they're sort of unbelievable. But in fact, it's almost happening.
If you look back in 400 years' time, if we're still inhabiting this planet, people will go, what?
Yeah, this poor
They'll be
fellow,
making podcasts about it.
I know, this poor fellow Garcia with wild roses tattooed on his thigh is accused of being some notorious murdering gang member.
Yeah, craziness. Well, Alice Nutter's case
hang on. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. These people you're talking about now are in addition to the 10 that we've already spoken about.
Well, some of them, but I mean, as I say, Janet Device, she was one of the original 10. It was her daughter who gave evidence against her for murdering 3 people. Yeah.
I wonder how she grew up. She probably turned out to be a really nasty piece of work.
I don't know. I mean, she was probably forced to give evidence against her mother.
Maybe.
She could have grown up she could have killed herself. Who knows?
Do I remember correctly that the Mora witch trials resulted in 16 women being put to death?
I can't remember. It was years ago. It obviously had a bigger effect on you than it did for me because you actually married one.
What are you talking about? What do you mean I live here? Hang on. Sorry to change the subject completely. What episode number are we on?
This would be 186, maybe?
All right, so we're not at 200 yet.
Not yet. Now, Alice Nutter's case is notable because she wasn't part of either of the two main families involved in the trials, the Devices or the Demdikes. She was also relatively wealthy compared to the others, which was very unusual for a witch. While there was little direct evidence against her, she was accused mainly based on her alleged involvement in the meeting at Malkin Tower with the stolen mutton.
Isle of Man Tower, isn't there a song about Mull Tower?
No, that's Mull of Kintyre.
Oh.
I apologise for my demented friend. So, although many people travel to Pendle Hill and hike up the hill while familiarising themselves with the story of the Pendle witches, as I said, the hill itself isn't really significant to the witches or the trial itself. Pretty much all of the events that took place were located around the base of the hill. That's not to say that Pendle Hill isn't worth the hike. It does offer lovely views across Lancashire, but you won't find anything directly related to the witches by doing so. That being said, there's plenty of witchy things to do in the area.
Have you just read that out of the Pendle Hill Tourist Guide?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
It does a bit, actually.
But they do have the Pendle
witchy things.
The Pendle Heritage Centre, which is a small museum and visitor centre, which is sort of packed full of history regarding the trials, and it's broken down a sort of day by day thing. It's quite well presented. Alice Nutter's grave can be found at St Mary's Church.
What? You can't bury a witch in a church graveyard?
She was wealthy, remember? Or relatively wealthy. But as you say, it's unheard of that witches are buried in graveyards.
Consecrated ground.
That's why it's kind of debated that it's hers. And although it's more likely that she was buried in an unmarked grave with the other witches on Lancaster Moor, the headstone does bear the Nutter name, so it certainly belongs to her family. If you're looking for other Pendle Hill witches' graves, no one truly knows where they were buried. But if you do want to pay your respects, you can leave flowers at Alice Nutter's statue, it was commissioned in 2012, the 400th anniversary of the trials, to commemorate the victims of the 1612 Pendle witch trials. And it's just randomly placed beside a main road for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, it's next to the lay-by on the A34.
Yeah. It's believed that the Pendle Hill witches were held in the dungeons of Clitheroe Castle on one night on their way to Lancaster Castle, whereas in other towns and villages the witches were paraded for their crimes. But in Clitheroe, the authorities were a bit scared of them. So instead of being held in a locked room in a tavern, in Clitheroe, the witches were held in the castle cellar. And it's also where Margaret Pearson, the only witch who wasn't hanged, was instead sentenced to be publicly shamed. Shame!
Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
Cersei.
Ding, ding, shame!
That was a bit of a shaming.
Before she served a 1-year prison sentence.
So that was the range. Either you got 1 year in the nick or death.
Yes.
But why didn't they burn the witches? I thought you had to burn witches.
Well, interestingly enough, Lancaster earned the name of the hanging town due to more people being sentenced to hang there than any other town outside of London.
It was obviously a hot spot for witches and criminals.
Yeah. The hangings took place originally in a place called Gallows Hill, but I think that was a generic name. It was on the moors close to Williamson Park. And then from 1800, executions instead took place at a spot called Hanging Corner at Lancaster Castle.
I suppose a lot of people were hung in those days, though, because you got hung for stealing horses, didn't you?
You got hung for everything. You just had to turn up.
Which is quite surprising, really, bearing in mind how few people there were around in those days.
They were quite civilised, though. Often those who were sentenced to death at Lancaster Castle...
proper meal?
Well, they were carried in a cart from the castle and along Moor Lane, where they'd stop at the Golden Lion pub for a last drink.
So that would be enough for you, is it? I sentence you to death, Mr. Andy, but you get to stop off for one last pint.
Yes, because if they get me into a pub, I promise you they would not leave that pub until everyone was blind drunk. And when they were blind drunk enough, I would be off ski with the horse and cart. Though there's no evidence that the witches actually stopped there, it is rumoured that they took the same route and that they too would have stopped for a drink before their execution.
So this is just rumours and hearsay.
No, but, you know...
Maybe they stopped off at Buck Pal to have a chat with the Queen before they were
It is rumoured that they did so. Now, although the original Golden Lion doesn't stand there anymore, the pub that is there dates back to the 17th century and is said to be haunted by a nun who would escort the condemned to the gallows in the 16th century.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in Lancashire, and you do get sentenced to death, you too could stop for a pint at the Golden Inn.
When was the last person hanged in Lancashire?
Oh, how would I know that? That's not relative to the witches, because it was probably in the 1900s.
Yeah, it probably was, because I think the last hanging in England was 1960 somethings or others.
Now, the Malkin Tower, where they had the Witches' Sabbath, it wasn't really a tower, it was more of a cottage.
So why did they call it a tower?
I don't know. It was the home of Demdike and Alison Device.
Well, did these people have husbands? One assumes they did, because Demdike produced a daughter, and the other one...
Well, it's the location where they all met on the 10th of April in 1612, and it is one of the most famous alleged witches' Sabbath in English legal history. And it's considered a significant location in the Pendle witch trials, although its exact location remains uncertain.
There's a lot of speculation in this story.
It no longer exists. I know, but there's a lot of documentation as well. We know this happened.
What, that you haven't bothered reading, or you're relying on the Lancashire
tourist? I didn't get the chance to go to the gold. I got stuck in the Golden Lion. I didn't quite make it to Pendle.
Exactly. You got stuck in the pub on the way to do your research.
I was almost there. I could smell the witch trials. Anyway, it no longer exists, but people have been searching for it for years. The only firm evidence for its location was found by a chap called Thomas Potts, who places it somewhere in the forest of Pendle. Because remember, the cottages in the forest was a common way to live, because you were surrounded by fuel for your fire, animals for game, hunting, etc. Even archaeological excavations have failed to uncover any remains of the building. And some believe it might have even been in another parish, that of Blacko, on the site of present-day Malkin Tower Farm.
It might not have been even in Lancashire, you mean?
Yeah, it could have been in Northumbria.
It could have been in Devon.
It could have been in Mercia.
There's so much depth to this story.
Oh, well.
It does sound like a story for the tourists, just to bring a few tourists in.
I think they have capitalised on it, because you can do like the Pendle Hill Walk. There's like 6 different guided tours, from the short walking with the Witches' Trials to the Pendle Witches' Road Trail. There's plenty of witchy activities to do there. I think that's basically all they've got going for them.
Maybe we should do the same in Mora. Maybe we should start a little tourist activity, the Mora Witch Trails.
Yes, you could. And you could also, I mean, you could make it like a bit more interactive and actually let people torch a witch at the end.
Bit more interactive. Oh, God. You can
I'm sure
a witch's barbecue.
I'm sure we could find some witches that need burning in Mora.
Oh dear. Yeah.
So anyway, that sort of brings us to the end of the Pendle Witch Trials.
Pendle, Pendall.
Pendle.
Pendle. All right. I'm going to write that down so I avoid going there.
On the contrary, you should absolutely go there.
I've never really been up north. I've been up north once in my life.
Was that Watford?
No, I think we drove up through Yorkshire. I've definitely been to York. And then at some stage, I think I've been to Scotland, but I have a feeling we flew and rented a car.
I've never been to Scotland. The furthest north I've been was Halifax. I had a girlfriend from Halifax for a few years.
For a few years? Don't be
4
ridiculous.
Years.
That would be your longest standing relationship.
Yeah, I had 2 4-year relationships.
What happened to her?
Oh, the usual.
What, you shagged her sister?
No, she didn't have a sister. Her brother was lovely.
Are you still in touch with her?
We are Facebook friends.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
But, I mean, Facebook isn't real.
No, not for long. Zuckerberg has actually kept in the background recently, hasn't he? Though he's doing some pretty dodgy things in terms of not outlawing dodgy people on his Facebook page, paedophiles and things.
Oh, I don't know. I sort of don't really follow what's going on there anymore.
In the social media scene. Well, bearing in mind we're part of it, Andy.
Kind of. I really hate the fact that we're on there. But what do you do? Anyway. Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the story of the Pendle Witches as much as Mark obviously did.
Yes, I like a bit of a witch's story.
Every step of the way.
No, but I've got to keep in touch with what's going on. I've got to bring you back down to reality and, of course, at least provide some substance for the story.
Well, there was a lot of substance.
No, there was a lot of... one of them may have spoken to a neighbour who happened to stop at the Golden Fleece for a pint one day, but they may not have done because they might have gone to the Golden Lion up the road, which had a special offer on that week. Oh, dear. Yep, good one. What's the problem?
Sorry, I'm just looking at Ronnie. He's got something on his back leg.
Oh, let's hope it's not a Klingon.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Do you still use that indoor toilet for the cats?
Yeah, of course.
Do they use it?
Yeah. No, they just shit all over the floor.
No, but aren't they allowed out at your place there?
Yeah.
So why don't they have a poo outside?
Oh, they come in for a shit.
You're joking.
I'm not. I it pisses me right off. Like, I let them out in the morning. If I open the door about 11 or 12 o'clock, they'll come in and straight to the toilet.
You must have the only cats in the world that prefer to have a poo inside.
Some cats are like that. They just like their privacy.
No.
Yeah.
Aren't there any sandy areas near your house that they can use?
If you had the choice of shitting behind a bush or the comfort of your own throne, where would you choose to go?
I don't know.
Really?
If I was a cat...
I mean,
they use it to mark their territory, don't they, cats? Don't they poo
They
to mark their
pee
territory?
to mark their territory.
Oh, they pee.
If they're
to mark
taking a
their
dump, they generally need to watch their back because they have to know what's going on around them. That's why they prefer to do it in an enclosed room,
No.
so they cannot be approached from behind.
Why can't they interrupt the flow? They might get attacked and they can't interrupt the flow.
Well, exactly. They'd be caught unawares, caught, as it were, with their pants down.
That I would not enjoy.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Yep. Well done, Andy, for a Wednesday.
Yep. We'll be back to see you once more next week with another tale of strange stuff.
Yep.
In the meantime, have yourselves a strange week. Don't go eating any stolen mutton at a mate's house next week because there is a good chance you'll be going for your last pint at the Golden Lion on your way to Pendle Hill.
Yep. Pendle
So take care of yourselves and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Cheerio.